Hi, I'm Dorina, co-founder of Quo. You might know us as OpenPhone. My dad is a business owner, and growing up, he always kept his ringtone super loud so he'd never miss a customer call. That stuck with me. When we started Quo, our mission was to help businesses not just stay in touch, but make every customer feel valued, no matter when they might call. Quo gives your team business phone numbers to call and text on your phone or computer. Your calls, messages, and contacts live in one workspace, so your team can stay fully aligned and reply faster. And with our AI agent answering 24/7, you'll really never miss a customer. Over 90,000 businesses use Quo. Get 20% off at quo.com/business. That's quo.com/business. And we can port your existing numbers over for free. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers.
This is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. O-Pill is the first over-the-counter daily birth control pill available in the U.S. Let's be real, getting a birth control prescription is not always easy, and it's so much admin. In fact, about a third of women face barriers to access prescription birth control. Between scheduling appointments, missing work, class, or just trying to exist, it's a lot. But now O-Pill is putting birth control in our control. O-Pill is a daily birth control that's FDA approved, full prescription strength, and estrogen free, and 98% effective when used as directed. Grab it online or at most major retailers, no prescription or doctor's appointment needed. So if you're thinking about birth control, check out O-Pill to see if it's right for you. Use code GIGGLY for 25% off your first month of O-Pill at OPILL.com. That's code GIGGLY at OPILL.com. Birth control in your control. We love to see it.
Hello and welcome to 31 Days of Terror 2025, and we are on day number 6, and I have 3 spooky stories for you today, and story number 1 comes from Naomi. In February of this year, my school hosted its annual trip to Washington, D.C. It's of course paid for by you, the school just sets it up with the company. We left Friday morning on the 14th, Valentine's Day. We drove the 10 hours to D.C., and we did a bunch of stuff and then went to the hotel. Then in the morning did more stuff again. The spooky stuff that happened was at the 9/11 memorial. We went to a mall for dinner because the mall was right in front of the Pentagon. After we ate, we walked over to the memorial. The memorial is basically a bunch of benches that represent multiple things based on what way they're facing and what row they're in. So the group was split up by gender, and my group of the girls were gathered around the bench that was for the youngest person that died. It was raining on the walk to the memorial, but it had stopped at this point. We were all around the bench listening to the guide, and suddenly, clear as day, behind all of us, where there was no one, a heel scraped on the concrete, and there was a loud, hard stomp into the rocks. Me and 2 of my other friends were the only ones who heard it and noticed. Others maybe noticed as well, but just thought it was us because we were the furthest back. The boys' group was on the opposite side at the eldest person's bench, and no other groups were there. We just brushed it off, although we were creeped out. At every place we went, the tour guide gave us a challenge. It was his way of making us explore and still have fun. But we had to figure out why the benches were facing the Pentagon, why some were facing the arches, why some benches were closer together than others, and why they were in distinct rows, and research somebody who died that day. All of the benches had a name on them, and you could go to a website and research them. The benches that were facing the arches meant that the person was in the plane. The benches facing the Pentagon meant they were in the Pentagon. The rows were what year they were born, how old they were. And the benches being close together were just because of the amount of people in that age group. We figured everything out, and then we started walking around to choose a bench to research. One of the girls in my group, Eve, we walked past a bench and Eve suddenly stopped dead in her tracks, which made the rest of us stumble slightly. She turned around and said, "No, this one," and points to the bench that we just walked past. V pulled out her phone and started to pull up the website. All 5 of us in the group saw as clear as day that her phone was on 76% battery. I remember it. 76% exactly. It suddenly just dies. The battery goes to 0. And we were obviously pretty freaked out by now. I would be pretty freaked out too. And it sounds like something was trying to make itself known to you guys. You know, stomping, dragging its heel along the stones, draining the battery in a phone that's at 76%. And that's something that's reported regularly in paranormal investigations, that, you know, cameras and phones and whatever that have full batteries suddenly have no power at all, as though whatever is in the vicinity, in the area, is taking all the energy and the life out of that device. I would recommend looking up pictures of the 9/11 memorial that's at the Pentagon if you haven't seen it already. It is very, very striking. And I imagine there's a lot of energy and emotion at those places. I mean, the 9/11 memorial in New York City at Ground Zero is just, it's just very emotional. It's a very emotional place. It's beautiful, and you can see the thought that has gone into the creation of the memorial, but it is very emotional. And maybe that level of emotion brings something to the fore, you know? And our second story today comes from Keira. This first story my mother told me about a few months ago. She says that she has a friend that had an experience. In my town, we have an old abandoned junior high school in the centre of town. It was my mother's junior high school in the 90s and her father's high school in the late 70s. The old junior high hasn't been used in almost 2 decades for school, but people still sometimes rent it out for things like night classes. My mother told me that one night this friend was walking around the halls of the abandoned school at night. This experience was after the school had been abandoned. Apparently he was calmly walking through the halls when he saw a person. As far as he knew, he was the only other person that should be in the school at that time. I do not remember all of the details, but I do know that the friend knew that this man was a spirit. He ended up talking to the man. He was talking to the man and learned that he was a boy in his late teens. From what we can guess, that boy had been a student at the high school years ago. They talked for a while, and from what I know, he was a very nice boy. At a time in the conversation, the friend asked the boy how he died, and the boy said that he had drowned. I don't know any more details to this story, but I would like to pry my mom for more details. The second story is from my family. My grandmother told me this story. Back in November of 2008, one of my great-grandpas passed away. I had only been born 2 months earlier, so I never got to meet him. A month later in December, his older brother Keith told us that he had a dream that my grandpa Charles came to him. He said that Charles told him that it was time to come home to go with him. He told everyone that he had said that night that he was going to go home with Charles, and he passed away in December. About 6 years later, great uncle Keith's wife Anne said that she had a dream that Keith was telling her, "Come on, Mom, let's go." Like how when parents have kids, they refer to each other as Mom and Dad when talking to their children. That is what my Uncle Keith was doing. It was kind of funny, but Anne said, "I'm not going with him unless he stops calling me Mom. I'm not his mother." I'm not sure how long after she had that dream, but I do know that she passed away. My best guess is that Uncle Keith stopped calling her Mom. My great-grandpa and his older brother were very close. I think my great-grandpa's death made his brother sad, and maybe that's why he died shortly after his little brother. They both fought in World War II. My great-grandfather was a bomber and Keith was in the army. Keith was on Normandy Beach, but the only reason he lived was that he was one of the last waves of soldiers and was a high-ranking officer. Imagine having a full-on chat with somebody and then realising that they're a ghost. That is like Christmas Carol type shit, you know? And that must be a really existential experience, to feel like you've had a conversation with somebody otherworldly. I can't even imagine what that feels like. I know that there's an element of that when you have visitation dreams. There's an element of, oh my God, I feel like I've just experienced something from the other side and I've had a conversation with somebody from the other side. That is a really weird experience. But to do it in the flesh, as it were, is that an offensive thing to say about dead people, about ghosts, to do it in the flesh? I don't know. But to do it in the flesh, that's pretty wild. Also, as I always say, I love stories where loved ones come back to collect their people when it's their time to die, to come back and appear in a dream and say, come on, it's your time to go, time to come home. I mean, it's kind of a beautiful thing, isn't it, to know that someone's waiting for you on the other side.
Dude, did you order...
The new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I've never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever. With eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate. Any condition guaranteed. Best 5G source root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
Old school security kicks in after the break-in. Too late. Simply Safe rewinds the story, stopping crime before it starts. ActiveGuard Outdoor Protection uses AI-powered cameras to detect intruders, alert live monitoring agents, and can deter intruders before they reach your door. It's proactive protection, plus a 60-day money-back guarantee and no contracts. To get 50% off your new system, go to simplysafe.com/podcast. That's simplysafe.com/podcast. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Tired of your car insurance rate going up even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence, download the Jerry app, or visit jerry.ai/ACAST today.
And our final story today comes from Anonymous. I recently found out that my mother is nearing end-stage liver failure. Sadly, we don't live in the same country, so in order to assess her health, I had to fly to America to see her. The trip was going pretty well, and she was in good spirits, although was visibly unwell and definitely not herself. I felt a deep sadness to see that she had deteriorated so much over the 1.5 years that we'd been apart. While I was there, I had to take some time to myself at the end of each day to piece my broken heart back together so that I could put a positive face on when I went to see my mom each afternoon. On the 3rd day of my visit, I stopped off at the grocery store on my way to her house. And as I walked back to my car, I saw an old teacher of mine, Mrs. S. Mrs. S used to teach English, which happened to be my favourite subject, and I was friends with her daughter and dated one of her sons. So I used to hang out at her house, and she treated me like I was one of her children, much to my mother's chagrin. Mrs. S was walking across the parking lot, too far away to casually say hi, and because I would have had to yell to get her attention, I hesitated. It was then that I realised that it couldn't have been Mrs. S, because she was far too young. I stopped in my tracks, watching this woman who looked exactly like my teacher from 30 years ago walk towards the store, grab a cart and head inside. I then went and sat in my car for a few minutes feeling really strange. The daughter of hers that I'd been friends with died 2 years ago, although we didn't keep in touch. But the point being, it couldn't have been mistaken identity for her. After a few minutes, I composed myself, but still feeling unsettled, went for my daily visit to see my mom. A couple of days later, I decided to have lunch with an old friend to cheer myself up. And during the course of our catching up, she casually asked if I'd heard the news about the death of our old teacher, Mrs. S, which had happened just 2 days before. I hadn't mentioned seeing her at this point. I was too busy telling her about my mom's disease progression and talking about our kids. In fact, Mrs. S hadn't even been on my mind since the incident. To say I was shocked is an understatement, and my first question was, what time? My friend then told me that she was found in her bed first thing in the morning, and so it most definitely could not have been her that I had seen, and yet I had the uncanny feeling that it was indeed her who I had seen. 10 days later, I am back home and sitting in traffic when I allow a car to cut across me to join the opposite flow of traffic. The driver turns towards me and gives his wave of thanks, and for a second time I'm seeing somebody that shouldn't exist. The driver has the face of my cousin who passed away 10 years and 10 months ago. I suddenly felt overwhelmed with grief for my mother, which didn't make sense. But it just felt connected somehow, and I cried for the rest of the car ride home. I'm currently trying to find a way to fly back to see her, because I just feel like these spirits are trying to tell me that I need to be with her for whatever time that she has left. I know it doesn't make sense, and these doppelgangers are probably just normal people who happen to look like the people I thought they were. My reasonable mind says one thing, but my heart just knows. Oh, Anonymous, that story gave me the absolute heebie-jeebies. And I'm not even really sure why. But I remember Danny Robbins told a story on his podcast, but also in the Uncanny Live show, I think, about a friend of his who saw their friend travelling up an escalator. Do you know, and this friend, like, they definitely saw her. They were like, oh, there's, you know, whatever her name was. And then it turned out their friend had actually died earlier that day. So I do think that it happens more often than we think. And it also, like, again, it feels kind of gorgeous. Like, this woman, Mrs. S, was a huge part of your life. She was your friend's mom. She was your boyfriend's mom. You spent a lot of time there. She was your English teacher. It was your favourite subject. I think those things are really, really important in your formative years. And the other thing that I'm going to say is, I have millions of times been walking down the street and seen a man that looks like Dan, right? Or looks like, you know, a friend of mine that passed away. And I can't express that feeling of like, oh, where your stomach swoops and you think, oh my God, and you turn to look and you go, okay, you're just a man who looks similar or whatever. But you immediately know it's not that person. Like, you have that moment of, whoa, swooping feeling, like where the whole world seems to tilt on its axis, and then you go, oh no, it's okay, that's not actually that person, that was just my imagination. But this feels like something different than that. This feels like you're actually seeing that person, and then you're going, no, but I'm seeing a younger version of them. And we often talk about how when people pass away and they come back for visitation, whether it's in a dream or whatever, the people often see like a younger version of that person. Maybe a version of them like in their prime, as it were. Sorry to use like an animalistic term to describe human beings in that way. But like, is that what happened? And are these people that were so important in your life, you know, your cousin, your high school English teacher, like, are they coming back to be like, this is happening, and, you know, you need to be, I don't know, prepared in some way, or even, this is happening, your mom is ill, but we're here, we're still here, we're still looking out for you. Maybe that's a really nice way to think about it. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Naomi, Keira and Anonymous for sending in your stories. If you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you can get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
If you're a smoker or vapor, ready to make a change, you really only need one good reason. But with Zyn nicotine pouches, you'll discover many good reasons. Zyn is America's #1 nicotine pouch brand. Plus, Zyn offers a robust rewards program. There are lots of options when it comes to nicotine satisfaction, but there's only one Zyn. Check out zyn.com/find to find Zyn at a store near you. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.